Welcome back. So, I haven't made a whole lot of builds on this channel, even though that was originally kind of what was my focus was going to be. But of the 3 builds that I've done so far, 2 have been Nuka-World themed, and I haven't done any for Far Harbor. So I've got 2 Far Harbor themed builds, and this is the first one. And I think I knocked this one out of the park. This one was really fun to build. It was really fun to play with. And it's got a lot of juice, like a lot of oomph. So let's go ahead and get started on the Harborman. So first I want to talk about equipment. When I first came up with this idea, I looked at what kind of armor and clothing I wanted to wear, and I saw that there was actually a piece of clothing called a Longshoreman's outfit. And I'm like, well, I have to check that one out. And when I found out that I could apply the ballistic weave to this, it was open and shut. And it looks really cool. And then, of course, it comes with a matching hat as well that gives you a +1 to luck. So that's always nice. So that right there was the clothing that I set up, the clothing setup that I picked in a nutshell. Okay, so now let's talk about weapons. First, I want to talk about the fish catcher. As you can see, it does a fair bit of damage, and it has a 40% reduced action point cost. So you can actually swing this thing 3 or 4 times in VATS. And I don't even have a lot of action points. It is kind of slow, but it does hit hard. So for something a little bit quicker, I also went with the large meat hook. There is a unique one. I think it's called the Butcher's Hook, which you can purchase from Erickson, who is the super mutant that sells the dogs. Because he's got a wolf and a super mutant hound, and I think the other one's like a Rottweiler. I don't know, he's got these 3 unique dogs that you can purchase, which I never actually got around to on this build. The regular meat hook is actually doing a fair amount of damage, and the Butcher's Hook, all it does is refill your action points on a critical hit, which hasn't been too much of an issue for me, although I could see it being useful. And then lastly, I did make some bleeding bear traps, because for this one you only need 1 rank of the blacksmith perk, and to upgrade this one you only need 2 ranks. And at 2 ranks, that unlocks the bleeding bear trap. So I figured, I never used these, and they were fun, and the cool thing about them is, unlike with other landmine type objects, these are mostly reusable. You do break one here and there every once in a while, so you'll have to make more. But the ones that don't break, you can just pick them up. You can reuse them. So I thought that was really cool. As far as consumables, whiskey is an obvious pick for this build. He's a sailor, he drinks whiskey. But you could also go with Dirty Wastelander. That does consume 2 whiskeys, but it gives you +3 strength instead of the +2, and a +1 to charisma, which this build's hurting for. You'll see in a sec. Fried Fog Crawler is actually also really good, and there was one other one. There's a fried, is it the Hermit Crab? But those are hard to find. Fog Crawlers are a little bit more common, and they give you a significant damage boost, or damage resistance boost, I should say. So those are, that is something that I made a point to go and get. And of course, we can't talk about Far Harbor consumables without at least touching on Vim Pop. So Vim has a few advantages going for it. Now, it doesn't have as many variations, nor does it have any recipes like Nuka-Cola does, but it has 3 advantages. 1, you'll notice it does not give you any radiation, so you can drink this all day long. 2, it actually gives you 50% more HP than a regular Nuka-Cola does. And 3, this item is craftable, so you can make as much of it as you want. Now, all 4 of the variations, as you can see, restore HP and action points to varying degrees, but each one of these 3 variations has different effects. So Refresh increases action point recovery rate. Quartz increases carry weight, and Captain's Blend actually is very useful in Far Harbor because it repels sea creatures. If you ever played Pokemon, you know what a repel could do for you. And of course, there are ice-cold variations of all 4 of these. Okay, so let's talk about perks and attributes, and I want to start over here with the attributes, right? So because this is a melee tank character, strength and endurance are going to be key stats. Now, I went hard into endurance, but you really only need a 7 to get Adamantium Skeleton. So if you want to put those other 3 points into strength, you can. And then rather than making all 5 of these rank strength, you can make a couple of them endurance to make up the difference. Because then you would only, if you have 7 here, then you would only need 2 or 3 over here plus a bobblehead to get up to that final score. So what I did here was because you need to have, and this is one of the things you'll notice, all of these squares, all the circles are green. There are no mandatory expenditures on attributes. You could take all of these perks with these attributes. This is a very Spartan build, and I like it because it let me do a couple of things. And one of them was the fact that I don't have to put attribute rank ups in here. These 5 ranks of strength, they're at the end because they're optional. And they were just filling empty slots because I had nothing else to put in there. Because that was it. The build was done. Except for, a couple ranks here in Lone Wanderer. So I said, you know what? Screw it. Let's just max out the strength and really crank up the damage to 11. So, if you wanted to do that, you can. Now, I know I'm starting with a 4, but you actually won't be starting with a 4. Because the moment you walk out of the vault, you're going to go get that your special book, and that's going to put you up to a 5. And then, for just 3 pieces of steel, you can build a weight bench, and that'll put you up to a 6. And then if you're lucky, maybe you'll find a piece of clothing or something in Sanctuary somewhere, like some dirty army fatigue. And I always like to max out endurance because I always play on very difficult, so I like my characters to be really, really tanky. Now, Charisma, we only put that at a 3 because the only perks that we need out of Charisma are Cap Collector and Lone Wanderer, and that we only need a 3 for that. Intelligence and Agility are both at a 1, and Luck is at a 5. We don't need any perks from Agility. However, if you wanted to have a ranged attack, Gunslinger is Agility 1. This is a melee tank. You can, by endgame, I was running up and beating Mirelurk Queens to death. This is a viable endgame build. And of course, Luck, we put it at 5 so that we can get Bloody Mess and Idiot Savant. Now let's talk about perks and the order of perks. Early on, we want our character to be tough. So I took Lone Wanderer toughness right away. We want that survivability early on because until we get Iron Fist, which we don't get our first rank of Iron Fist until 8, and we don't get our first rank of Big League until 14. So early on, you're not going to be doing a whole lot of unarmed damage. I then immediately ran along the northern border of the map all the way. And you guys watched me do this when I did my Border March video. You're relatively unencumbered. There's almost nothing along that northern border. There's a couple of dogs. You might pass near the USAF Olivia satellite station. You'll pass near 10 Pines Bluff. You'll pass comfortably north of Outpost Zimonja, so you won't have to deal with the raiders that are there. You'll have relatively low amount of obstruction, and you can just run all the way to the Nakano residence on the ocean front, and immediately go to you can start the quest Far From Home and immediately go to Far Harbor. I got there at level 4. So it's totally doable. And the first thing I did was I went over to the shop and I purchased a meat hook. And then, I had blacksmithing by then, so I was able to upgrade it. So I went from doing piddly damage to really putting the smack down. Which I was then able to go back to Sanctuary and then start the game normally. And, I picked up Idiot Savant at level 5, and then I leveled up through 6 and 7 quickly. And then I went hard into Iron Fist at 8 and 9. And I was I think I was doing something like 60 points of damage at that point. And you can upgrade it right away, too, because it only requires 1 rank of Blacksmith. That was the other cool thing is, this is the second and final rank of Blacksmith. It's level 16, so that you can upgrade the pull hook to its final stage. You do not need a lot of Blacksmith. You only need 2 ranks. I didn't go all the way. You don't need more than that. That's what I'm saying. It's a very Spartan build. There's most of these perks I didn't max out. I don't have the last rank of Caps Collector. I only have 3 ranks of Bloody Mess. Locksmithing, I only took 3 ranks. There's a lot of perks here that, we only need the first 2 or 3 ranks. And I didn't max them out, which allowed a more diverse set of perks. So, which is why I was able to take ranks of Big League so that I could really hit hard with that pull hook. if I need to hit something hard, and I just needed to hit it one time and hit it really hard, maybe from surprise or something to double or triple the damage, double the damage. I use the pull hook. Otherwise, my main go-to, my workhorse for this build is the Iron Fist, is the meat hook. And there is as I mentioned before, there's a unique one that you can purchase from Ericsson, but I never made it out to Ericsson to buy that. The regular one is just fine. I did take 2 ranks of Aqua Boy because I felt like it was very thematically appropriate. This guy is one with the island, both on land and sea. And I also took a lot of rad resistance because, he's been out in the fog so long that he's just developed a tolerance for it. Almost kind of like the Children of Adam. But this guy's driven by purpose. He's focused. He has a goal. So he doesn't let the fog drive him crazy like the Children of Adam and the trappers that are out there. And then, of course, we wrap it up with Bloody Mess and a whole bunch of ranks of strength to really, this stretch right here is the really ramping up the damage, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 out of, 15 perks are all focused on increasing damage. So from level 36 onward, you just hit harder and harder and harder and harder. But even with this build, just as it is, with the equipment as it is, it's a fun build, it's cool, and it's functional, it's effective. I was able to consistently, effectively kill stuff with this build. Now, obviously, because we need the ballistic weave, we went and joined up with the Underground Railroad. I did discover, and I thought this was a very appropriate name for the character. If you refuse to give yourself a name and then tell Desdemona to pick a name for you, she will give you the name Wanderer. And I thought, ooh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. So this guy's name his code name in the Underground was Wanderer. So yeah, that is the Longshoreman build. It is pretty effective. A couple things I wanted to touch on in closing. I did mention that there was one particular companion whose perk you'd want to pick up, and that is Old Longfellow. If you're going to be spending a lot of time on the island, his perk increases the amount of damage that fog creatures, not fog creatures, like sea creatures, like mire lurks and fog crawlers and that kind of stuff, it increases the amount of damage that they take. So it's super, super useful. Also, bear in mind that the meat hook uses the unarmed skill, and I didn't specify that earlier, but I want to clarify that now. Meat hook uses unarmed. Pole hook uses melee. That's why I take both of them. And this build, like I said earlier, because it's so Spartan, allows for that. And it allowed for a diversity of skills. But yeah, all in all, it's a great build, and I had fun time with it. And I think I'm going to have another one for you guys maybe in another 2 weeks. But in the meantime, thanks for checking out my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.